Welcome everyone to Coaching in Session. My name is Michael Rearden, and I'll be your Mindset Coach today. And today is going to be all about success, about finding a mentor, finding motivation, and we have a special guest, Robert Riopel. He is the author of Success Left a Clue. Just talking about that book alone, there's so much content that you can learn how to get to the next level, whether it be your next level of progression or your fullest potential. And many people fail to understand how powerful it is to take the first step to get the building blocks of what you need in order to be successful. Because many of the people who are successful, it didn't happen overnight. Something they did, something in their routine helped them or allowed them to go on that path, that journey toward success. And for many people, they don't even know the first step. Well, you don't have to look any further. Richard and I are going to be talking about that in today's interview because many people are just lost. Many people are just afraid. Many people are just operating under the bounds of what society is allowing them or telling them to do. Now we have to get out of that old way of thinking and into a new way of thinking. There's a lot of stuff that's going to be happening in the next 5, 10, 20 years that might be good, that might not be good. I would rather have you be on the side of good than not so good. So how can we get to that side of good, right? Of course, we have to work on our mindset. We have to find a mentor, a coach, someone who's going to help us along the way to get to a better place, right? Whether it would just be in life or in our mind. Because when we have a strong mind, when we have a path that we can walk down, then things start to work more in line with who we were always meant to be. So let's get into that guest interview with Robert Riopel. Welcome, Robert Riopel, to Coaching in Session. How are you doing today?
Michael, I'm doing great. Glad we were able to connect.
All right.
Have some fun.
Yeah, we had some trouble, but we got here. So that means it's meant to be.
Exactly.
So read about you, your bio and everything. Can you tell the audience who you are, what you have accomplished, just a little bit of a bio background?
Yeah, a young entrepreneur, been a serial entrepreneur all my life, but still I was conditioned that you don't try to be an entrepreneur. Go find that job, get that security. That's how you take care of your family. But I've been blessed that not only have I been a Domino's Pizza franchisee, I've also an international best-selling author. I've been blessed to travel around the world for the last 20 plus years now, not to age myself, and personally train over 500,000 students on how to create financial freedom in their life, how to really go for what they want, and just live in my passion. Mm-hmm. And my ultimate thing I love doing is finding people who have a message and show them how to get it out to the world.
Right. And one of the things I want to talk to you about, especially, is success. Many people see success as something as only for the select few, right? So they say 1 or 2% achieve great amounts of success in their life. Why do you think so many people are afraid to try to be that 1 or 2%?
If you look at it from my perspective, I think what it is people want it to be handed to them. And it's the people, they go, well, success should be easy. And it's not. It takes work. And so you have to put the work in. I get the question all the time. People go, well, Robert, how can I do what you do? And I simply say, hey, if you want to do what I do, you have to be willing to do what I do behind the scenes when no one's watching. The practice, the grind. So success isn't easy. It is simple because you can find people who've done it before you and do what they do, but you still have to put the work in. And unfortunately, Michael, too many people aren't willing to put that work in is what I've noticed.
Yep. And my first motivation in motion video, I say this line, I say either you want it or you just kind of want it. But a lot of people just kind of want it. And that just leads us to society, like you said, wanting everything handed to them. And it could be a generational thing. It could be easy times that are making people not want to be proactive and go after more in their life. That saying, tough times create strong men create easy times create weak men. And we're just in that cycle right now of we had a bunch of strong men create easy times, and now we're cruising in these easy times, but we're actually making it more challenging. So right now we're going to be either entering or just maybe finishing off the tough years, where now people are going to have to rise to the challenge, right? For example, let's say there's no food on the store shelves anymore. What are they going to do, right? They have to rise to that challenge. And I'm not saying to go out and be robbers or Robin Hood or whatever, but to go out and say, well, I'm going to have to learn how to do like gardening, or I'm going to have to learn a skill in order to provide for my family. And that's going to help people say, oh, I had to do this in order for me to grow in my life. But we don't necessarily need a challenge every single day for us to be successful or for us to do something. We just have to want it and then be proactive and go after it every single day. I don't have someone over my head at 6 o'clock in the morning when I need to go to the gym saying, hey, you need to go to the gym. That's me. And similar to how you said, you have to put in the work. Like I said, it's easy to not show up, but if you can show up every single day, that's going to be powerful. I know you said you kind of do some motivational speaking stuff, and like I'm against like the whole type of being a motivational speaker too, because we agree it's temporary. It's a temporary buff where we're like, okay, I went to Tony Robbins, I went to Les Brown, I went to Zig Ziglar, and I went to this event. And I feel, all right, I just spent $100,000 and I'm going to go out and I'm going to fight the world and I'm going to be successful and I'm going to get the results that I want. Cool, right? It works to a degree. And we're going to talk about those degrees a little bit later. But I wanted to get your perspective on motivation.
Yeah, and you're hitting it right on the head, Michael. That's exactly it. It's the motivation without action just becomes motivation and it wears off. It becomes that shiny object syndrome, like, oh, next, what's over here? But when, and I'll even admit, because I can only go from my experiences. When my wife and I we've been franchisees with Domino's Pizza for 8 years. And because of our spending habits and not managing our money, we were over $150,000 in personal debt. And we were stressed out beyond belief. And I don't know if you've ever experienced stress like financial stress, but it is the worst stress for me out there. And we walk into this seminar and we learned some great stuff. We got motivated, but we learned to take responsibility for our debt. Quit, because I was good at blaming other people. Oh, they lost my investment, or because of them, I did it this way and look at what I lost. So I learned to take ownership. And then I was given actual steps. If we wanted to create financial freedom, what did we need to do? And knowing me, had we not been in that bad of financial stress, I probably would have left and went, that was a great weekend, and did nothing with it. But because we were in that stressful situation, we knew there had to be change. And my wife and I started taking action. And that's why we were able to go from that debt to being completely financially free 9 months later. And we were only 32 when that happened because we took the action. So when we talk about motivation, you're so right. Motivation is short term. I want to create cellular change with people. I want that where when the times get tough, because they do, and that's why people quit when motivation is all they have, is all of a sudden things are going great and they feel awesome, but the first speed bump, they go, oh, well, it obviously didn't work in my life, and they quit. So when you have that cellular change, that speed bump comes along, they go, oh, just a speed bump, let's keep going. That's when the real change happens. So I love to do processes where I put people into cellular change so they don't even have to think about it anymore. It just becomes automatic for them to not stop. They take one more step. So to me, that's the difference between motivation and cellular change.
And the idea of skin in the game. So skin in the game is just saying that I'm investing so much into something where if I don't do something with it, I'm going to feel bad about it, or I'm going to cringe. Like I just spent $100,000 on coaching and I'm not motivated yet. I'm going to make that change, right? So some people have to invest a large amount of money in order for them to be proactive. It's similar to a trauma.
No. Yes and no, because I'm coaching a woman right now where my soul journey with her, I customize my coaching. She's already spent over $50,000 on courses to write her book, start coaching, all of that. And it's an amazing woman out of South Africa, but she hasn't done anything with them. And so I said, if I take you on as a client, here's what we're coaching you on. I'm going to hold you accountable to start using those programs. You've already bought them. So you might as well get the return on investment. And I said, a number one rule, you're not allowed to buy anything else until I tell you you're allowed to, because you've got a return on these other ones. Because now I want her to take all these programs that are not mine, they're other people's, but my goal is to say every time we have a call, what have you done? And she's now just rocketing through them and actually utilizing them and loving it. And her husband's on board because he's not going, oh, you just bought something else you're never going to use. He's seen her using it. And so he's now behind her. Her whole family's there and she's seen the results. So sometimes it's not just the money. You actually have to have someone other than yourself to maybe kick you in the butt every once in a while. It can be a combination for the different person.
Yeah, of course, accountability is going to be a factor. Skin in the game is talking about what someone values. So, for example, I might value time more than money. So if I'm spending time with you, spending time on a program, that's going to be more valuable than any amount of money I spend, even if it's $150,000. That doesn't matter to me. I have worked with millionaires, billionaires, and they can care less about my fees. Here you go, Mike. And after 31 days, they vanish. Those sessions vanish. They see me once. Every session they purchase is gone. Next month, they're like, well, here's your money again. We'll try it again. They don't care about the money. It's different for everyone, right? So everyone has a different skin in the game type of factor. And it's not just money, right? Someone could spend $50,000. Someone could spend $50. And it could be different because everyone's going to be in a different place. Let's say you are down and out. You're homeless, divorced. You don't know left from right at this point. And you're trying to figure out your life. You got $50 in your pocket and you give that $50 to a coach and you say, this is my last shot. That's more powerful than saying, well, I have some money that was handed down to me and then I'm just going to use it willy-nilly. And when it's all gone, it's all gone. Right. So it just depends on the person and the factor of how much they're willing to do. Now, of course, just because they spend money or they don't value money or if they don't value their time, it goes back to who you are intrinsically, because we might be lazy people. Right. And if we look at the brain is naturally lazy. The brain wants to do the least amount of work, but get the maximum amount of benefit. Yes. So with that being said, it just depends on how the person's mind is. And change doesn't happen because someone wants change. Typically, it takes a trauma. For you, you had $150,000 in debt. That was a trauma for you, right? The stress.
Yes.
Unbearable. But we have to try not to allow a trauma to be the reasons we change. We should be more pronounced in our change and our efforts toward a better self, to a higher self every single day. People have a hard time with that. Is there any tips that you have to help people change their views on just what society tells them, per se, to do and to be, but to start to look on the inside and start to act accordingly to who they want to become?
Yeah, you know, what you just touched on is, I believe that the greatest gift anybody can give this planet is to be themselves and show up authentically, whatever that looks like. Because when you do, some people are going to like you and some people aren't. And if the people that like you for who you are, that's awesome. The people that don't like you for who you are, that's awesome. Because, you know, and this is coming from a world-class people pleaser and a world-class procrastinator. That's who you're talking to right now, Mike, is a world-class people pleaser and procrastinator. And so I've learned, and you talk about that inner work, it is going into what is sweat equity. It's not just money. It can be many other things. And so it's, how do you decide to go through? So when people get overwhelmed, as an example, here's what society's saying I have to do, what I should do, where I should be, what it should look like, is you have to be willing to trust yourself. The number one person in the world to trust is trust yourself that you can get through it. And when people get overwhelmed, it's usually because they're 1,000 miles ahead of themselves, trying to figure out every little detail. Well, if I'm going to get there, I've got to do this, I got to do this. What if it doesn't happen in this time? And those what if scenarios are playing it out. And of course, they get overwhelmed. Or they're so anchored in the past because of what happened to them. Well, you don't realize this happened to me. And they're still caught in that victim role. So what I recommend to people to do is get a quiet spot. Take a nice deep breath in and come back to the present. And just ask yourself a simple question. What is one step I can take right now, right here in the direction I want to go in? And then take that step. And if you really want to mess with your mind, because you're so right, the mind wants to be lazy and keep you right where you are and not put a lot of effort in. So the moment you come up with a step, your mind's going to try and tell you why it's not going to work. So if you want to mess with your mind, especially in the beginning, make it something so simple that there's no way you can't do it, no matter what's going on in your life, that you can do it. And then you celebrate it. As soon as you take that step, you actually go overboard and celebrate it. Your mind will be going, what are you doing? And because what people don't realize is that success is just a habit. And so it's not small success, medium success, large success. A success is a success. So especially in the beginning, if your mind's thinking it's really small, use that to keep it as a habit. Build that habit. Strengthen that habit. Because then once you get in the habit of actually taking one more step, pretty soon you're going to be unstoppable. Because now it's going to be, oh yeah, I said I'm going to get this done. Yeah, I need to do this. Boom, done. And you're not even thinking about it. So that's the other kind of skin in the game, is being willing to work on who you are, understand yourself, and trust yourself. Plain and simple.
Definitely. And while you're talking, I was just thinking about my life, my career. And one of the things that popped into my head was when I was a swim instructor. We have a student and they're learning how to swim. Mm-hmm. They don't know how to swim quite yet, but they think they know how to swim. They can be in the water. They're not drowning, so they think they're swimming, right? They're kids. And what I would do is I always just take any student I get and we start from the basics, right? The ABCs. And we just work on the kicks. We don't worry about the arms. We don't worry about moving the body. We don't worry about breathing. We worry about the kicks. And that start of just worrying about the kicks allows them to perfect that. They perfect their kicks. And when the kicks are amazing, I celebrate them. So much positive reinforcement. I would throw them in the air. Say, oh, wow, you're so great. Like, who taught you this? And we have a whole conversation about what they just did and how it was so amazing.
Yes.
And that was the building blocks for them. So then we do that with the kicks. We do that with the arms. We do that with the breathing. And before you know, they're Olympic swimmers almost, right? But it wasn't me just saying, well, in order to swim, you move your arms and your legs, and all of a sudden you know how to swim. Success is similar to how you were saying, right? It's a small step every single time, and it's a habit. So you get a little bit of success and you don't allow that success to just sit there. Like, I had some success in my life, but I just let it waste. You had some, but then you can keep compounding it. Similar to interest, right? If you start investing at a young age, it's going to compound. Mm-hmm. Even if you put $5 in a month, it's going to be so much more than whatever 5 times 12 is times the amount of years you were investing, right? It's going to be so much more than that. And the same thing is true for success. If you keep pushing every single day or every single time you try something new, even if you have a failure, it doesn't have to necessarily be a setback, because that's a learning lesson for you too.
Yes.
Many people are so afraid to fail. I mean, I have high school students who probably have only failed a high school test, whether it be algebra, history, whatever. They will email me saying, hey, I'm afraid to fail in life. And they're not willing to go to college and find a major because they don't want to make the wrong choice. They don't want to pick something that they don't want. And I mean, I don't blame them at the same time, because college is expensive, right? And they might come from a background where they don't have a lot of money to go off and just pick several majors and minors. I was one of those kids. I didn't have the luxury to just pick any major I wanted. Now, I did mess up in the beginning because I went business finance to teaching. But at the same time, I was the one who was paying for my own college. I worked 60 hours a week doing 15, 18 credits a semester. And then I look back at what I accomplished when I was all done and I was a teacher. I said, how did I do that?
Yes.
And it's amazing because you just do it. You just show up every single day. You give yourself a goal, you give yourself a task, and you do it. Why don't more people give themselves a challenge rather than just, well, I would rather be lazy? I think it's more than that. I think it's more than just being lazy.
It is. It is. And it comes back to, and it's something that you were talking right at the beginning of the interview, when people, we were talking about people that just want things handed to them. A lot of that becomes very cultural in how you're raised. And look at some of the cultures where you're raised not to make a mistake. You better be perfect. And the kid takes that whole thing on. So of course they take that anxiety on. If you want to read a good book, there's a great book called Pendulum and one of the authors is Michael Drew. And it talks about two 40-year cycles that the world goes through. And when you understand these two 40-year cycles, it opens up to why we're where we are. And what's going on here, say in North America, could be totally different than, say, in Asia. And, kind of going back to something you'd said before, one of the reasons, before COVID hit, I was traveling on average 200,000 miles a year around the world teaching. Why? People going, why are you not teaching in North America? Why are you teaching all, Asia, India, Europe? Why are you teaching those countries? And I said, because they're in a different form of the cycle where they're looking for teachers and they're actually willing to put it into work. In North America, we're in the middle and coming out of the 40-year cycle of entitlement. Prove it to me. I shouldn't have to do the work. And I don't know about you, Mike, but I want to teach students who actually want to learn and do what they're being taught. And so a lot of people struggle because they've had all that pressure put on them to be perfect. And absolutely, our greatest lessons come from what did not work in our life. I hated failure in the beginning, but now I thrive off of it because every time I do any kind of task myself or with a team, we ask, okay, what worked? And we take the emotions out of it and we just make a checklist. Okay, we just did this and this and this and this and this worked. Great. What did work or did not work? And we take, again, the emotion out of it. It's not like, well, Mike, because of you, it's like, okay, this didn't work, this didn't work, this didn't work, this didn't work. And then we go, okay, so knowing what did not work and what did work, what can we do different next time? And we make the adjustment because we see the biggest lessons come from what didn't work. And so I love when things don't work the way I thought they should. And, the final thing I'll say on that is also the reason people struggle with this, in my experience, what I've seen around the world, quit trying to do things on your own. This is why I coach. Look at what you were talking about with swimming. Because you taught them how to kick first. How many people could spend years and years and years trying to swim and never have the right kick and not even know it because they don't know what they don't know? So having a coach and a mentor is critical, but yet we've been taught, figure it out on our own. Don't ask for help. That's weak. That's, and that's the biggest crap out there. Find people that have accomplished and do what you want to do and ask them how they did it. Ask for their help. Get them to coach you. Get them to be your mentor. And watch how greater and quicker you can have success. And when you do that, at the same time, I empower people to say, who can I be a coach to? Who can I be a mentor to? Because I want you giving as you're receiving. Not just, well, once I get there and I've arrived, then I'll help others. No, you can help people now. So help them on your journey at the same time.
Yeah. And I was a teacher, taught K to 12 music last couple of years. I was doing special ed. And I wanted to make a difference. I wanted to be the person who will go into schools, change the whole school system, help these students be better, right? Because again, I grew up in the ghetto. I saw the kids, I saw the struggles, and I wanted to be a support system for them, right? What I noticed is that the schools have so many strict regulations with whether it be the curriculum, just policy, you can't change it, right? Even parents now, right? Parents are going in and yelling and screaming, and they're just like, well, whatever, they're crazy. And they just shove them off, right? They just wave them off and they continue on with their business. And though I was able to make an impact with my students, right? With all the students I worked with, from when I first started teaching to when I left teaching, the growth they had made was night and day, right? People were coming to me saying, like, what are you doing to these kids? Like, they're amazing. And I was like, yeah, we've been working every single day. And I've been showing up every single day, 100%. There's only one day I didn't do 100%. And if you want, I could tell you the story later. I could tell you now. But it was that one day. And it only took me one day to realize if I don't give 100%, my life is going to be hell. So I gave 100% and they grew 100%, right? And they were so appreciative, I could tell, because they were becoming more skilled. But when I first got into the school, of course, there was a teacher before me, right? So they had some type of experience with another teacher. So I had to get rid of all those bad habits.
Yes.
Right. And I'm not saying all teachers are bad. I know wonderful teachers. I've worked with wonderful teachers. But sometimes you get a teacher who can ruin it for everyone. And that can tarnish a student. A teacher can yell at a student saying, don't talk in class or things like that, or raise your hand if you want to speak. It could be a gambit because stress and trauma is different for children, right? that little act of me having an outburst and lashing out at them can be significant in their eyes. Like, oh my God, I messed up. I'm going to go home and I'm going to not tell my parents what happened. I'm just going to be miserable and I'm going to retain this negative emotion inside of me. So they learn multiple things. The first thing is I have to listen to the teacher. I have to listen to authority. The second thing is I'm limited to my freedom in class, right? I can't speak out. I can't say what I would like to say. And I'm not talking about the students who want to go dancing in the middle of class. I'm talking about students who have questions that might not be in line with the topic, but that topic sparked a different type of thinking in that child. So they're just asking, but the teacher's saying, stay on topic. So now the student's thinking, I have to stay on topic. I can't go out of the spectrum of what we're talking about. So only what we're talking about is what I should be talking about or thinking about. And then the last part is I'm going home and internalizing everything, and I'm not utilizing my support system, my parents, my grandparents, my guardians, whoever it is, and telling them what happened, my emotions, right? We have our emotions under lock and chain, and that's the way we grow up, right? That's a negative thing, right? Because it creates limiting beliefs. And I think that's where we are right now. We have just a society of people who have a bunch of limiting beliefs on them, where they have to learn how to shed that anchor or shed that baggage and learn how to fly once more.
Yeah, you go to that point when someone like you and someone like me, someone could be listening to this podcast and go, well, you guys have obviously had a lot of experience and you know, probably I could never get there. And I want people to understand we're just regular people, just like everybody else. Mm-hmm. We have gone through this, and that's why we now see the importance of getting it out to others. And I remember in 2007 was the first time I went from training in North America, and we were getting ready to do a 3-day training in Singapore. And I was freaking out. I was kind of like, well, I've never been outside of North America. Do they have the same belief systems? Do they have the same crap and limiting beliefs going on up here as we do? And so I was kind of freaked out. How's it going to go? And I have 6,000 students in the audience for 3 days where I'm on stage up to 12 hours a day. It only took the first hour for me to realize they were just as messed up as we were. And they had the same limiting beliefs halfway around the world, totally different culture. But they had the same limiting beliefs and same fears and same doubts. And so we were able to do work with them, and we saw them just explode open, because all of a sudden for them, it was like, wow, someone in North America has the same limiting beliefs as we do. And now, you know, because of that, I've been blessed to travel all over the world. And I've noticed that probably the biggest issue that everybody I've met, no matter where in the world I am, have in common, we all struggle with low self-esteem. And to know that empowers me, because then I know I can help people all over the world. And that's exciting, you know, because when people realize that, hey, I'm not the only one. Other people are going through this, because that's one of the things our mind does to hold us back. It tells us you're the only one going through this. That's why you need to keep those emotions in check, because no one will understand you. And that's crap. You have to have the courage to be able to say, here's where I'm at. And surround yourself with, and I won't say like-minded people, Mike, because I went through this lesson even just a couple of years ago from one of my mentors. I used to love to tell people, surround yourself with like-minded people. And he looked at me and said, well, Robert, if you're surrounded by complainers, what do you think you're going to be? And I looked at him and I said, okay, what's the answer? He says, surround yourself with growth-minded people. And here's the difference. He said, a growth-minded person, they're going to be your greatest cheering squad when you're doing well. They're going to be the ones that'll help pick you up when you've stumbled. But one of the most important roles that they're going to have in your life is they're the people that are going to be willing to have the tough conversations with you when needed. Like, why are you being a jerk right now? Or why are you playing smaller than you are? You're greater than what you're playing. Step up the game. And that's probably one of the gifts my wife, as an example, has given me that served me the most. Because left to my own devices, I'd be in a job, comfortable, but I'd be miserable as could be, because that's the way I was conditioned. Go get that job with the security. Find a union. Work for the city. Work whatever. Find something that's going to give you that security. But my wife's not willing to let me play smaller than I am, even when it means she has to kick me in the butt. And of course, I'm always open to her telling me I have to play a bigger game. But of course, I've realized that the two most important words in a relationship are yes, dear, because almost always she's very, very right about it. And so having those growth-minded people in your life to hold you to a higher standard, That's how you can really leave your impact, whether it's for one person, being the person in your seat, or it's for millions of people. You are going to impact people, whether you know it or not, every single day. And you won't even have to say a word to them. They're going to get your energy. And one of the quotes I have is that you're either going to affect people with your greatness because you're living your greatness, or you're going to infect them with your mediocrity.
Mm-hmm.
And in just my opinion, but I believe one of the biggest issues in our world today is way too many people are living mediocre lives.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And they're just allowing complacency to take a hold of them, and they're not willing to step out of their comfort zone, because right outside of the comfort zone is the fear zone. And where fear is, failure often shows its face, because many people are not willing to take the leap of faith. It could be, I'm going to start back school. I'm going to take a shot at this business, right? So people find a safe, comfortable job because that's what they were taught, right? The American dream, you work your 9 to 5, you work to 65. And then at 65, you get to be happy, you get to retire. But then at 65, if you look down the line, how's your health? How's your mind, right? Like where are you in life, right? You might have the house, you might have the car, you might have the kids and everything, but are you fulfilled? Did you spend those years to retirement doing the things you love rather than doing a job you hate? Because so many people wait for Friday and hate Monday. And we have to get out of that system, right? Because if we're just going to keep on hating every single week we get, we're not going to be pronounced in what we do. We're just going to say, hey, I'm just not going to show up because I'm going to a job on Monday I don't like, but I have to go. Otherwise, I don't have a roof over my head. I don't have food to put in the fridge. I have to do this. And I'm not saying that you can't work a job like at Applebee's, Chili's, Walmart. I'm not saying you can't do that. What I'm saying is to have
hungry.
I'm just saying to have aspirations beyond that, right? We don't build an empire from 9 to 5. We build an empire from 7 to 11. And I'm not talking about 7-Eleven fast food. I'm talking about we are going to take our evening time when the kids are all set and done and they have their homework and maybe they're watching TV, but we decide to read a book instead. We decide to do some research instead of being on our smartphone, going on YouTube or TikTok. And I'm not saying that TikTok and YouTube are senseless, because you can watch motivational things and you can get content on there. But most people, for the evening time, they're going to watch something that's more entertaining, right? So they'll put on a Netflix series that just came out. They'll put on a movie they saw for the umpteenth time. And they keep on with that pattern, but that is not going to help them. And I mean, even when I was starting my business and everything, I was religiously following a routine, and that was acquiring a wealth of knowledge and wisdom at the same time. So wisdom was from my mentors, where I would go to work 9 to 5. When I get home, go to the gym, do everything I have to do, eat, meal prep for the next day. And then I'm in bed 7:30, 8 o'clock, depending on the day. And I'm reading until 11. So I'm reading 2 hours a night. And sometimes it was a little bit longer if I wasn't tired or exhausted that day, but I would make sure I fell asleep with the lights on and a book in my hand. And I did that for the better part of a year. From doing that, I just amassed so much knowledge, and it gave me a wealth of resources for me to say, okay, this is what I want to do, right? Because the whole idea of my business, this podcast is called Coaching in Session, but it's only a subjunction of my business, which is Reven Concepts. And if you turn the name Reven around, it means never. The reason why I call it Reven Concepts is because I want to turn never around. I want to turn limiting beliefs around. I want to turn, all this fear of failure around, because when we have that negative, we also have a positive that can happen. Everyone is all about immediate gratification right now. Understandable, right? I'm not saying that I don't like immediate gratification. I wish I can just go to the gym. I do one curl and I have huge biceps, but that's not the case. I have to go and I spend an hour and 15 minutes a day in order for me to do that. I enjoyed the journey. And I think many people fail to understand that the journey is where the happiness lies. Everyone wants the goal. Everyone wants to win the lotto. They want to say, okay, once I get this money or I get to this place in my life, then everything is just going to be magically better. But that's not the case, because you're going to be more excited to show up every single day when you're doing something you love rather than getting to the place where you thought you wanted to be. Because many people think they know what they want until they finally get it and they realize this is not really what I wanted.
And they had been chasing it for a long time. And that's why in my new book, when I talk about the 4 currencies, the currency I work on the most is the currency of experience, because it's what you just said. Enjoy the journey, embrace the journey. I don't want to reach the end of my days and look back at my life and go, what did I do? I want to look back and go, I experienced this, I experienced that. And so everything I create today, I create as an experiential way of doing it. As an example, I run some very high-end masterminds, and I don't just do a mastermind. I put an experience around it, whether it's on a yacht or whether we did a private jet to the Bahamas 2 years ago, or when people came to my home to do a mastermind, we actually had a private suite at a show to watch. And so we had the limo pick us up, because all of a sudden when people are now experiencing something deeper, they're going, wow, I'm ready to go deeper and I want to create more. And one of my mentors said something you said a little different. He said, you create a living from 9 to 5, but you create your life from 5 to 9. And, which is exactly what you said with the 7 to 11 part of it. And that's what a lot of people aren't willing to do, is they get home and they go, but I've had a hard day. We all have. And most people, what they don't realize is they're going, but Robert, I work hard already. Yes. And you're probably working harder being broke and miserable than if you were to turn it around and say, what do I truly want? And put the work into that. Because now when I have a day of energy, I can do an 18-hour day. And at the end of the day, am I tired? Yeah. But am I burnt out? No. I get a great sleep and I wake up refreshed because I'm going for what I truly want, the life I really want to have in my life. Do I have always great days? No, I'm like everybody else. The crap comes into my life also. But the question is, how do you handle it? How do you negotiate? Do you try to do it on your own, or do you actually ask for help? Those are that's where coaches, mentors, and those growth-minded people around you play a critical role.
It's challenging when people want to hold on to what they have, because they have this life that they created, whether it be by circumstance or by their own accord. They say, I'm going to have this life and I get this life. But then they do everything they can to hold on to it. They're afraid to let go. And as long as they're afraid to let go of what they had, they can't make room for what they will have.
Yes.
It's sort of like a Zen story. I'm not sure if you're into Zen Buddhism, but there was a master monk who filled up a student's cup with tea. He filled it up and the student was like, what are we doing? He's like, having tea. And so the student was like, I'm not here to have tea with you. I'm here to learn about Buddhism and about the mind and about spirituality and all these other things. The Zen master said, well, first empty your cup, because our mind is just so filled with all of the world around us, whether it be social media, drama from family members. And we're not necessarily worried about, well, what we want to do, because that is challenging. That requires work. And if it requires work, we don't necessarily want it. So we just hold on to what we have. We do as little as possible to keep what we have. So many people just stay where they are, right? Back to complacency. I like to think, well, I don't want this to happen to anyone. But what happens when someone loses everything, right? They file for bankruptcy, they lose their home, cars, everything, right? They have nothing, right? Then you have people who unwillingly wanted this in their life, whether it be like a home fire and they lose everything and they have to start from scratch. Those people, like, what is going on in their minds, right? What is going on when that is happening? Do they say, all right, it's time to start over? Or is it time for me to just say, well, this happened to me, I guess I'm just going to, scrape by again?
Well, and I'll give you a little insight from what I've learned. And again, something I'm writing in my new book is I call the 4 phases of life. And one of the phases is I call it the unclutter phase, but another way of calling it's called chaos. And what happens, what you were just talking about, is the chaos that comes into our life. And most people, when the chaos enters their life, they're like, and they freak out and they resist it. But if you actually understand that chaos is natural, as human beings, we're meant to evolve. And the reason chaos comes in is when the people get too attached to hanging on to where they're at or what they have, and they're not evolving. And it's like, you've had this, Mike, I know, where all of a sudden something happens in your life and it's a lesson. And if you pay attention to the lesson, that's fine. But if you don't, the lesson doesn't go away. It comes back with a little more force next time, right? That's chaos coming back in. And so I call it the unclutter phase, is because when you are in this phase, this is the time to courageously destroy something that's not working in your life. And it may be a business or personal relationship that you've been hanging on to. It may be, I want this new vehicle, but until I actually am willing to let go of the old vehicle, I don't have the space to let the new one in. Mm-hmm. And when I teach people, I let them know you can actually courageously volunteer for chaos. And a person, what do you mean by that? Well, one of the greatest things to destroy when you're in the unclutter phase is a belief that's not serving you, mm-hmm. that you've been hanging on to, attached to. And the greatest way to destroy it is proof is a cure of all doubt. Mm. Prove that belief to be wrong. And even make it simpler, a way you can create or you can cooperate with chaos is you can, and the reason I call it unclutter is go to your refrigerator every once in a while. Clean it out. Go to a closet. Go to your desk. Volunteer to actually unclutter it, because how often do we all hang on to stuff that we really don't need? Every 2 weeks, I come to my office and I unclutter it. Mm. So I'm showing the universe or God or whatever higher power you want to go by that I'm willing to cooperate with chaos, so that when it comes to me, it doesn't have to be the hard kick, the hard punch, something that knocks me down really, really hard. It can say, hey, here's a gentle little reminder, or maybe go in this direction. Okay, I'm ready to go in that direction. Mm-hmm. And a friend of mine who's a monk, I call him, he was a monk. I call him the quantum monk, because he was a monk for 8 years, did over 15,000 hours of meditation, and he studies quantum physics. So he can tell you all about spirituality and tell you the science behind it. He's brilliant. And he says this. He said, instead of being willing to live life, courageously allow life to live you. And because people, they think they have control. And that's probably got to be the biggest cosmic joke out there. We don't have control. We have control on how we react and how we respond to what's going on in our life. So if we courageously allow life to live us, watch what's possible. Volunteer for chaos instead of resisting it. Watch what's possible. It means you can help avoid having to lose everything. Have that big devastation before you get the message. Pick it up quicker and watch where that will lead you.
That's an interesting way of thinking, where we say allow life to run its course, but we move with it. Is that where you're trying to go? Okay. I want to make sure I'm not going to shove a different perspective down that.
Yeah. People ask me, they go, Robert, if you could go back to your 18-year-old self, what would you say? And I struggled with that question because I look back and I realized is I would just tell myself to keep being me, because even the toughest, worst things that's happened in my life, I wouldn't be who I am today had I not gone through that.
Right.
And so I always take the lessons, and I'm always looking for lessons. And so people go, well, Robert, you went through 2 back surgeries, but so you're saying you would want to go through that again if you were to relive it? Mm-hmm. Well, those back surgeries taught me to properly take care of myself, because I hadn't been. Right. If it hadn't been for those back surgeries, I wouldn't have been able to host an event where our guests were the Dalai Lama, Sir Richard Branson, F.W. Clerk, 18 other amazing people, where I got to meet them all in the green room because I was the host and one of the speakers. Mm-hmm. And it was between my 2 surgeries. Everything works out. There's that saying that says everything happens for a reason, which a lot of people hear and a lot of people believe, some don't. But a lot of people, Mike, they don't realize that's not the whole saying.
Right.
The whole saying is actually everything happens for a reason, and that reason is there to serve me. Mm. And if you look at the whole statement, then now it opens up the mind to curiosity of why did this happen, or why did I go through this? And I'll never say you're going to get the answers right away. Because, you tell me, have you ever had something happen and all of a sudden years down the road, all of a sudden you go, that's why that happened.
Oh, yeah, of
now
course.
I know.
That was my guitar teacher. He told me something about how the guitar was like a puzzle and everything. And I remember it happened on Valentine's Day. I was supposed to go out with this girl. We had a date. She was running late because she had to go get her hair done. We missed our reservation. So, of course, they're not going to sit. This is Valentine's Day, so they're booked. So I remember just going there reluctantly because I was like, I know we're not going to the table. And then she was like, well, we just go to the diner. I was like, no, I just want to go home and play guitar. And she's like, are you serious? I was like, yes, I am serious. Just before the date, I realized what he said, how the whole guitar was a puzzle. And I basically knew how to play the whole instrument. And I was like, this is crazy. I mean, it took me probably 6 months for me to realize that at that point. But it was just like, jaw dropping. It's like, I can't believe this, so profound almost. But he would always give me these little nuggets. He was in his 60s, and he would say, and one of the things he said is, if you keep on practicing the way you're going to practice, one day you're going to realize when you're done with your show and you're home, you're going to feel all alone. And I was like, that's interesting. I was curious about it. And it happened on my senior recital, where, because I was a music major, and I did the recital. After the recital, I had all this admiration, all this love from everyone. And everyone was so happy for me. And they're like, oh, it's great. Thanks for having us. And the room was booked, full crowd. And so everyone was so happy, giving me cheers and love and everything. And then when I was home, I was just home with my guitar, and I had the option. I was like, what do I do? Do I play, or do I just think about all those good words of encouragement and things like that? But in a sense, I looked around, I was all alone. I didn't have anyone. And I finally realized then, it's another lesson he taught me, that you can be successful in life. And when you reach a height where many people are so happy, so proud of you, you're doing things that people wish they can do or have accomplished. But then when you reach that top, it's a lonely place to be. Sometimes I think about where I would be. For example, let's say I amassed a bunch of money when I was 18 years old. I would not be the person who I am today. It's not possible. It's not possible. I would have bought a home in the mountains and been up there with a dog or two, and I would have wasted the rest of my life away. It wasn't until I was in my late 20s where I started to really think profoundly and saying, I need to make an impact in this world. The challenges that I had along the way, I understand that they were there to build me up and create me. And if I had the opportunity to talk to myself when I was 18, I would give the same advice I give all successful people, all people who are trying for success. Don't stop. That's it. Don't stop. Keep going. I understand it's going to be hard. I understand there's going to be challenge. I understand there's going to be hurdles. Don't stop. Because the moment you stop, that's when everything starts to come on top of you, and it's difficult to get back up. It's similar to if you're running. The moment you stop, it's more challenging to start back up. And it's not so much that you're fatigued. It's just that your mind understands that there's nothing going to happen to me if I stop. So it doesn't push itself. So the mind is one of our greatest enemies in the sense of who we can become, right? My yoga teacher, she said, one of the greatest walls we'll ever climb in our life is in our mind, and we put it there. And that's so right, because we are the people who create the roadblocks for ourselves. Sometimes it's going to be fear-based, but sometimes it's just going to be that we don't have experience with something. So that's why having a mentor, having a coach, someone like yourself to help guide someone along the way and saying, hey, and don't do this.
The friends and family that you surround yourself with as well, because you don't want to be playing that guitar with no one around. Because you've got your accolades and you're now back at home by yourself, because it can be a lonely place. And, when I was traveling around the world, one of the things that I'm blessed on is, even if my wife wasn't with me, a 5-minute call on FaceTime, we could connect. And, and you asked earlier if I'm into Zen and that, absolutely. One of the things I did this beautiful 4-day Zen retreat at the beginning of my student career, before I became a trainer, and I'm still a student today. I will be in as many audiences as I can, because the moment I think I know it all, I'm done. And, we're doing this 4-day Zen retreat, and there's a question that kept coming to my mind that I was afraid to ask. But another participant asked it, and they said, Sherry, being here in this space, meditating is easy. But when I go home, I got kids. I got a business. I got a job. I don't have time to sit there for 20 minutes and go, what do I do? How do I meditate? And her answer changed my life. She said, meditation is being present. She said, so anything you're absolutely actually present with in your day-to-day life, you're meditating. And all of a sudden I got it, because, you and I were having a conversation, and how many times have you had a conversation with someone and they're there, but you can tell their mind's 1,000 miles away trying to think of something else or process something else. They're not truly with you. And so my practice is that when I'm here, I'm here. I'm present. And this is probably one of the reasons you're so good at reaching through to kids, is because when you're with them, you're present with them. When you're teaching them swimming, when you're teaching music, whatever it is, because even though you're aware of what's going on, you're there in that moment. So you're actually meditating. And so one of my daily practices, I will meditate as much as I can. So on a halfway across the world, when my wife and I get on a 5-minute FaceTime where we can see each other, is instead of just a voice where it's easy then to have your mind somewhere else, we're looking at each other. And if one of us drifts, we don't get upset. We just simply say, come back to me. And that's the little trigger to say, hey, I notice you're not really here with me.
Right.
Come back to me.
Yeah.
And because we handle it that way, it's not like, well, I've been on stage for 12 hours and I don't have time and I want to go to sleep. It's just like, she'll say, come back to me. And I'm like, wow, I see you. Hi. And we can have a 5-minute conversation and complete a day and just be present and therefore meditating. It's beautiful little practices that can, so have those people around you so that even if you're lonely, you're not alone. There's people that you can reach out to.
Yeah. And that was just a story of how he told me this. And then I had that feeling. That same time, I was still very comfortable in being who I was, because I did a lot of work with being present also. I remember it's a book, it's called The Peaceful Warrior. I'm not sure if it's a story of Dan Millman. He goes on and he has a challenge and he is able to overcome the challenge. I'm not going to spoil the book for anyone, but it's such a powerful book. It was a powerful book for me. I'm not saying that every book is going to be powerful for someone, because everyone's going to have a different type of knowledge base, right? So one book might lead to another book. Whereas if I give you the top book, so this book changed my life, but all the other books set the standard for this book to change my life. And when that book had came into my life, I was ready for it, right? It was the start, but it was also the key to help me move on. And then I was able to become more present, right? And then even now to this day, I'm cool as a cucumber, where the world could be on fire and I'm over here just walking in my sandals on the beach, having a good time. And it's not so much where I'm not trying to help people. If their blanket's on fire, I'm probably get a fire extinguisher, help them out. But in the sense of I'm cool, calm, and collected, I would say 98% of the time, right? Just to be fair, because that is the work I have accomplished, right? That were the work I have done for me to get there. And I'm a huge, right. And I'm a huge believer in being the representation of what you're trying to bestow onto people. For example, if I was a trainer and I was out of shape, I would want to be in shape. So when I'm teaching a client, hey, health is important. Let me be the embodiment of the health so you can see something, you can visualize it. This is what a healthy person looks like. And the same thing with the mind, because if the mind is not going to be positive, the mind's going to be pure. If I was a jerk and I was yelling and screaming and I was a terrible boss, would I want to follow me, right? And I ask myself that all the time, because I had some amazing bosses, supervisors in my life, and I had some terrible ones too. I remember when I had one that was kind of mysterious, I couldn't really tell his read. I went to the library and I remember reading like 7 books on leadership. And I read all these books, what makes a good leader? And I was able to take that knowledge and figure out from my experiences and these books that I had just read, what makes a good leader? And now that I'm in a position where I have people working for me, I have to be aware of how I speak to them. Because as much as I know I'm the boss and I can just fire anyone because they're doing something wrong or they're doing something I don't like, I stop myself and I say, breathe, listen. What would you like to relate to this person, rather than your anger? Because that anger is not going to help anyone. It's just going to tarnish the relationship. You're going to be in the same spot, even worse, maybe. So how can you be an effective leader? How can you use effective communication? Just like how you and your wife have developed a system, come back to me, right? Effective communication. And I think communication is a lost art at this point, where people can't even have a conversation with each other because they're on their smartphones. They're so preoccupied with so many things. Everyone has their own problems. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't have your own problems, but at the same time, we have to be willing to put ourselves in a space when we're with someone, we're with them, not just well, we're by them, right? Because yeah, you can be in the same space, but you can be 100 miles away at the same time.
Absolutely. Totally agree.
So helping people get into that mindset is so powerful. And then especially in relationships, and part of my business, I do relationship coaching also. And I always tell people, like, just to start off, well, do you have a designated time, a month? We just start with a month just to make it easy, that you speak with them, right? And they typically say no. And I say, well, that, in my head, I usually don't tell them this. I say, well, that's the problem, number one. And then I say, okay, let's figure out a day where we can have the two of you talk. Doesn't have to be for long, but you talk. And then we try to get 90 minutes every single week. And if we can do that, let's do it, right? That's going to help propel them to get back to better. 90 minutes of good communication a week. Now, of course, you might not have that 90 minutes. If you can, do, 2 hours the next week, all right, we can create a balance, right? But you do want to have some type of communication with them. And, like you said, 5 minutes, but it doesn't have to be 90 minutes. It's just in the beginning when things are bad, we try to cure it so then we can fix it. And then we can say, what is your maintenance time? Because your maintenance time might be 5 minutes, right? But for someone who hasn't been doing that work their whole entire marriage, they're going to need more time in order for that marriage to heal. And that's powerful for people to realize that I'm going to fix my marriage, number one, and I'm not going to allow it to get bad again, right? It's similar to getting in shape. You get in shape. Many people get in shape. They reach their goal, but then they stop going to the gym. It's a constant battle where we have to keep on maintaining, right? And people think that they're just going to reach this life of success and then it's just going to stay there. There has to be some type of maintenance. How many people win the lotto and they lose everything? Part. Yeah, the maintenance part.
Change is easy. The maintenance is where the work really comes in on everything. Yep. And I totally agree. And, you think about a great example of that was The Social Dilemma, that documentary that came out. And I don't know if you've watched it. And people that, when it came out, people were just like, oh my goodness, look what because it talks about the algorithms, how social media is watching, tracking everything. And people are like, how dare they? How could they do that to us? And a friend of mine and I, we started laughing our butts off because we are big believers in the law of attraction. And we said, do you realize this is actually the greatest example of the law of attraction right in front of you? Because if you want to know what you're focusing on, look at your feed. It's showing you. So if there's stuff that you're not liking on there, it's because you're taking time to put energy towards something you don't like and wondering why it keeps showing up. And we actually came up with a process where, you could actually change your feed on any of your social media right in front of you. And you could actually see it change just by, instead of putting any energy into things you disagree with or feeling you have to respond and give your point of view, just look for the things you love. And instead of liking it, hit love. Put the heart there. And your feed will start quickly changing. And all you'll start seeing is the things you truly want in your life. So that's the easy part. The hard part is the maintenance, because all of a sudden those dragons will come in to test you every once in a while. And to see, well, are you going to react? Oh, you've been doing great, but let's see if I can get a reaction out of you. And all of a sudden you might see a post, and then you go right back into that negative. Then your feed will fill back up. So it's that maintenance and it's the practice. Bit by bit by bit, you can truly create that life that you want as long as you're willing to put the work into it and be open to knowing that you're not perfect. We're all, or I'll put it like this. I am perfectly imperfect. Because, man, just ask my wife. She can tell you I'm not perfect. and I'm glad I'm not, because I'm just me. This is me. Goofball, aerodynamic. That's who I am. And that's who I love being. And if more people could just learn to be themselves, watch how this world really could turn out.
Yeah, definitely. Learning how to be yourself is a process that many people don't even realize they have to undertake. They think that, well, I'm me. Accept me for who I am, love me for who I am, but they don't take time to look on the inside. They don't take time to say, well, what makes me tick? What do I not like in my life? What do I not want in my life? They just are there, but they know what makes them get upset. But if you ask someone, I'm sure if you ask your wife, I'm not sure about your wife, but my wife is, sometimes if you ask her where you want to eat, she's like, I don't know. Right. So you have to know what you want. Right. And
that's right.
And if I take you somewhere and you don't want it, then at least you know what you don't want. And so,
Right.
so that's an easy way for husbands or wives to understand, well, okay, I know I don't want this to eat. So just replace that with, I know I don't want this in my life. And you just have a list of things that you want in your life and the things that you don't want in your life. And then you focus on the list of the things that you want in your life. And sometimes you're going to notice you're shifting over to things you don't want in your life, but those are your distractions. Stay away from those.
Yep.
And
And that's day-to-day life. That's living in a nutshell right there. That's life.
Yeah, exactly. And many people are afraid to live though. Many people are afraid to make mistakes. So they play it safe and, easy street or the comfort zone or the safe spot is not going to bring much growth for you.
Nope. Absolutely not.
Definitely. Well, Robert, I can talk to you all day long. I know that, but tell the people where they can find you.
Yeah, Michael, and I agree. I think you and I could have some deep, deep conversations. And I'll tell you, if there's ever a time you want me to come back and have another conversation, just ask. I'd love to be here. And, people, the easiest way to find me is just go to robertriopel.com, my name. And, because people have been so gracious, I believe time is one of our greatest commodities that we have. And not only have you been gracious to take your time and interview me, but more importantly, your listeners are taking their precious time to listen. And as a gift from us, if they go to robertriopel.com, they actually can download my entire Success Left a Clue, my first international best-selling book. The digital copy is our gift to them. And just for listening. And I'm going to say this, though. It does come with a caveat. In my book, I cover 6 steps on how to create the life you really want. Step number 3 is action. And so I didn't write the book for people to get it and put it on the shelf and make it shelf help. That's not why I wrote it. I want them to read it. And because I know people are creatures of habit, I actually wrote it as a manual, as a workbook. And there's action steps all the way through it. And being the quirky person I am, I even say things like, hey, did you do the last action? If not, stop reading right now, go back, do the action before you continue. And I'm going to promise your audience, if they download the book, read it, and do the action steps, they'll take their life to another level. So I'd love for them to be able to do that. And they can get that at robertriopel.com.
Perfect. I'm sure everyone who goes to that website is going to find a wealth of knowledge, and they're going to probably have a laugh too, because they're going to keep on going and they're going to say, oh, I didn't do it. You caught me.
Yeah.
Perfect. All right. Robert Riopel, everyone. All right. Thank you, everyone, for watching the interview with Robert Riopel and myself. As you can see, there's so much content in there. There's so many gems, from just talking about what motivation is, what success is, and then making sure we show up every single day. And of course, there's going to be roadblocks. There's going to be instances where we don't want to push more than just regular, right? We want to just put in the smallest amount of effort. I encourage people to push more in those times when we don't want to do something. One of the things I do is, if I don't want to do something, I do it. Now, that takes a while for that to happen in your mind, because the brain has to be rewired. If you haven't listened to that podcast about neuroplasticity, now might be a good time, because we have to learn how to rewire our brain. And Robert even said it. He's looking for cellular change, not just on the top, not just on the fluff, who you are deep down inside your DNA. So we have to dive deep, dig deep more than we really want to, because we have to get down to the good stuff, right? So all the top stuff is just the superficial stuff that's not going to help us. So we need to find the things that are going to help us. We need to find a coach. We need to find a mentor that's going to help us get to the next level. And you can read all the motivational books. You can watch all the motivational videos. That is temporary. My Motivation in Motion series is called Motivation in Motion for a reason. Motivation is always moving, and you always have to fill up your tank. So that's why it's coming out twice a week, on Tuesdays and on Thursdays. Now we can say, okay, I need a boost of motivation. Where do I go? We have a new video out, right? So that's going to give you a boost. You can listen to music in the gym. That's going to give you a boost. But we have to get away from getting that boost, because once we get that jump start, then we're able to move on our own accord. We don't need the help of a jump starter, a boost anymore, a motivational video. The motivational videos are helpful in the beginning to get you going, to get you moving, to get you thinking. Now, once you start getting in the process of, I don't need to be motivated anymore, then that's when we can really dive in and do deep work. And that's where coaching is going to come in. You don't have to watch a motivational video if you're working with a coach, if you're working with a mentor that has already done something or has the tools to help you get the results that you're looking for. So if you're tired of not reaching success, if you're upset with your circumstances in life, you don't have to allow that to be your future or your current state of being any longer. You can make that change. And of course, you can do it here at Reven Concepts. And whether you do it with me or you do it with Robert, make that change. Make that life change for the better for you and your family and your whole entire future. Because your future depends on you, not anyone else. And of course, I'm here to support you. I'm here to help you along the way. I'm here to give you the tools you need in order to succeed. And of course, if you have any questions, you can always reach out to me. RevenConcepts.com is going to be the best place for you to reach out to me and to acquire new tools and knowledge and wisdom that is going to help you push every single day toward your best self, to be better than you were the day before. That is the goal. So let's get to that goal together. My name is Michael Rearden. I'm a mindset coach here in Austin, Texas. If you have any questions, of course, email me. I will see everyone on the next episode of Coaching in Session. Until then, everyone, take care.